I spent a lot of time reading fairy tales, reading lots of different versions of Sleeping Beauty, and reading about fairy tales. And then I spent time on websites that were created by professional fairies that are playing in the fairy world as we speak. And so I learned a lot about fairies from that. I also read a lot of mythology, fairy mythology. Was very drawn to the Irish stories around fairies and the different kind of rules of fairies and how fairies and humans interact either positively or negatively. So that was a lot of fun. So that was about, I probably spent about 4 months on that kind of preliminary research. And then I wrote the first draft in January of 2013. And then Andrew North, who's the executive director of Globe Theatre, he was the dramaturge on the project. And he and I met and gave me some feedback, and Courtney Dobby, by that time, was also involved as the director. So I wrote another draft, and then another draft, and I think it was draft 4. It was completed in May. So then I wrote another draft, and I think that was finished at the end of, or beginning of July, and then there was another draft written in August, and then a final draft for the rehearsals written in September. So writing's all about rewriting. Well, I love magic and enchantment, and I love writing shows that appeal to a really broad age range. I think there's still a bit of a kid inside me too that just loves the idea of playing in the world of a fairy tale. The range of stories around the Sleeping Beauty myth is, I mean, some of them are completely diabolical and violent and horrific. I mean, not that pricking your finger on a spinning wheel and spindle of a spinning wheel and going to sleep for 100 years isn't bad enough, but there's way worse than that. So I was more interested in, I always start with character, and I had decided right from the beginning there's nothing very theatrical about everybody going to sleep for 100 years. So I pretty much decided that wasn't going to happen. And so there's no duration on the length of time that Sleeping Beauty will be asleep. So there's 3 good fairies that are a ton of fun, really, really fun characters. And they're led by Mev, who's the queen of the fairies. And she is, she's a very intelligent, measured fairy. And what she wants more than anything else in the whole world is a baby of her own. But she can't have a child. And so she helps Queen Adela, who's Princess Rosetta's mother, who becomes Sleeping Beauty. And so Queen Adela has little baby Rosetta. And at the end of Act 1, Mev, Queen Mev, the Queen of the Fairies, ends up taking the baby to the land of the fairies because it's the only place that Malafia, the evil fairy, has no power. I had a lot of fun writing the women, and I think that's probably the big twist in one of the big changes in this version is that, for the most part, well, for the most part, Sleeping Beauty doesn't really appear in her own story. She shows up, she's born. Next time you hear from her, she's 16, and sort of blunders her way into the spindle of a spinning wheel, and she's asleep. We don't really know much about her. We know more about the prince and everybody else, but not her. So that's one of the shifts in the story about Sleeping Beauty. Well, you know, like all fairy tales, the underlying theme is, you know, certainly the story of Sleeping Beauty. The theme is that love will conquer all, and so that is underlying everything, that the most powerful force in the world is not evil.